Hello, everyone. Welcome to Critical Faculty. Today, I'm returning the favor. A couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with the lovely Nuriyah Khan, and I was a guest on her channel, the Holy Humanists, to which I've added a link to the description of the video. But please let me just welcome Nuriyah into our studio. Hello, Nuriyah. How are you?
Hello, honey. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Very excited to host you today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for returning the favor. It's a pleasure to be here. And as always, I'm excited. Fun conversation we're about to have.
Yeah, well, you kind of sort of familiar with the down under sort of audience because you have sort of regular podcasts with Sultan, and I think he's in Australia, so you probably Australian audiences would have known you by now.
I think so. To be honest, I don't know to what extent. I don't know if the audience crowd tends to stick more with him because they resonate with him. But yeah, I think so, to be honest. One of my top geographies has always been Australia, so perhaps.
Did you guys get to compare Vegemite and Marmite?
No, we actually haven't.
You should at some point because it's quite interesting the subtle differences between the two.
Oh, I think we've had enough arguments about subtle differences. It's never ending.
Well, this is going to be an interesting conversation because I think you'll be the first female ex-Muslim that I'm hosting, which is going
Wow,
to be an
that's
interesting
really
conversation.
honor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
And
first
also
for
a bit
me.
sad that there's so few of us, but it's an honor, truly.
Well, as you know, most female ex-Muslims would cover their faces for very obvious reasons, and
Yes.
I'm very glad to see you completely sort of standing your ground, stating your case. There's nothing to be ashamed about. You're very proud of who you are because I think leaving the religion dogma isn't just everything about it. You are a lot more than just that, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think I consider it a privilege, to be honest, that, people like yourself and myself, we like not believing in a God or exploring these themes is just like one part of our lives. Whereas, as you said, that there's so much else going on. But you'd think that, okay, since I have that privilege where God can almost be an afterthought, the belief in God or the lack thereof is just an afterthought, I should use that privilege I have to, speak about these issues that otherwise people would consider taboo or not territory for, especially for women. When women leave Islam, they expect you to just kind of get on with your life, but it's like, no, we're actually going to speak back and we're going to fight back.
One of the things about apostasy, and I'll get you to sort of properly introduce yourself in a few minutes, but one of the things about apostasy, it's been said, oh, you guys misunderstand apostasy. It's really, you can leave religion, especially Islam, you can leave Islam as
Yeah.
long as you're quiet about it. You don't need to make a hoo about it. It's only those who speak against Islam, they're almost face the punishment of that of a traitor or like a spy or something to that effect, just to make it sort of secular. They're trying to secularize a religious doctrine here.
Yeah, no, exactly, 100%. And I always say, like, if once people realize that the actual word for apostasy in Arabic is akin to treason, I mean that speaks volumes in itself. Irtidad, it's actually like you're committing treason against a state or against the state of Islam. So yeah. Oh, Derek's in the house. Hey,
Yes,
Derek.
our common friend. Hello, Derek. I think this is how we kind of met, right?
Yes, it is
Yeah.
actually the reason.
So weren't
Derek
we
is the
talking
reason we
about that?
met.
It's crazy. We just talked about that, and he turned up.
Yeah, Derek, it's like yesterday when I heard my name and just showed up. You telepathically knew we were talking about you.
There you go. It's supernatural after all.
Yeah, we've just in 5 minutes, honey, we've just proved it.
Yes, only when it suits us, though.
Only when it suits us, touche.
So now let's just get a track back. You're obviously you're young, but when did you leave religion?
So I always think I left religion way later than I would have liked to, but I think any current like non-believer in God thinks that way. So I left when I was about 27. So it's been about 4 years now, and yeah, I mean, just like how much I've learned, and you almost feel like you have to make up for lost time that you didn't spend exploring ideas which are actually more fundamental to our reality than Gog and Magog trapped behind some wall that I'm trying to like watch History Channel documentaries and find out if there ever was a certain tribe or they were trapped, and it's like, what was I spending my time doing?
We're just proved another thing here for our audiences.
Oh.
So I think leaving religion kind of keeps you young. You're 31, according to my calculation.
Oh, so I'm 30 actually. Oh, why am I putting another? Yeah. So...
Yeah. Oh, 30. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm going to be 50 this year. So here we go. Leaving religion keeps you young for some reason.
Well, yeah, case in point. Look at Hani, ladies and gentlemen.
We're just trying to entice you here.
Yes. We have the elixir of life.
Never mind all these intellectual things. You want to look young. That's like
you want glowing skin? Come outside.
Obviously, we don't mean that. We're just having a bit of a banter because I think we need to start with a light note because things are gonna get dark, deep, and grim very soon.
Don't they always when Islam is in the equation?
Yeah. So that's with apostasy. So now in the UK, you live in the UK. And it's quite interesting because you have a very good concentration of Islamists and even the Muslim Brotherhood who escaped like places like Turkey and Egypt end up in the UK, as well as some prominent Pakistani speakers. I remember, is it Anjem Chowdhury? I think
yes,
one of the like honestly crackpots, like and you are things can get quite dangerous there.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's even when I was studying at law at university, the legal professor, when we studied legal systems of Asia and Africa, had a whole module dedicated to London being called Londonistan, and he would have a whole taught topic on creeping Sharia and how Sharia is kind of setting up in really, really kind of gray area. So it's not between the black and white law, but they've got these separate tribunals that are kind of propping up in these very heavily Muslim immigrant areas of the UK. And as you said, people like Anjem Chowdhury have been here, and these are all from the generation of my parents. So they are, kind of meant to be well assimilated into the UK by now, but these are long-standing immigrants who have been preaching since they ever got here. So even when my father was at university, Anjem Chowdhury was knocking about preaching, and they would prey on these young Muslim, fresh university minds and kind of show them footage of their Muslim fellow brothers getting killed and all these genocides and, trying to incite them. And this is it worked on a lot of people. So you have a lot of current British Pakistani young guys, for example, and if they're going through something in life, or if they're slightly swayed by some of these arguments, or that one Friday sermon at the mosque just ignites something in them, they do truly take this path. And sometimes they're people that they're living and walking amongst you, like one of my own university friends who was actually a revert to Islam, and he was a born Christian to a white English family, and he felt the call so strongly, and he actually went to Syria. But for all intents and purposes, every single day at university, he was actually not just a good a normal university student, but a really, really fun, wild, out there one. So the transition is crazy. You don't know, even within England, what people are doing behind closed doors, who they're emailing. He had links back home, and he had chosen his degree specifically to be able to get a free pass into places like Egypt and Kashmir, and then therefore Syria. So yeah, there's a lot of problems in the UK, and it's not necessarily the safest place. I'm sure you all know about Speaker's Corner as well. And yeah.
So only 4 years ago, so it took you a while. So you stayed with religion, you stuck with it for quite some time. Were you up to the age of 26 sort of those secular Muslims? So you're kind of watered down version of Islam where, you're Muslim by culture, and you just didn't really sort of worry too much about the practices or the harsh practices, and then suddenly it all sort of dawned on you? Or were you kind of really religious? Were you a praying person and fasting person and all these things that come along with Islam?
So even that was a bit of a journey for me because I kind of took like a reverse route. So growing up in the UK, my grandfather was like the imam of the local mosque and stuff. So
Oh,
I used to
wow.
go to Quran class. Yeah, he'd open the mosque for like Fajr prayer, like the sunrise prayer, and
Dawn.
give the
Yeah.
adhan. Yeah, and so me and him were really close. And so I'd go to Quran classes, and I'd obviously make an extra effort. We'd have like recital competitions. So I would try and like memorize the Quran really well. I carried this green little book of translations, and I put on the hijab really early when I was 9 years old.
Oh,
And
really? Was like
yeah,
permanently?
yeah, well, what I thought at the time would be permanently, sure, yeah. But again, that was the influence of me going to Quran classes, seeing my Quran teacher in hijab, learning what like good Muslim women are supposed to be like. And then I'm thinking, hang on a minute, why is nobody in my family wearing it? Do they not want to go to heaven? Because I want to go to heaven and I want to follow God's commands. So it was actually, I know this is like contrary to many experiences out there, because the hijab was purely my choice. And actually, my parents and my grandparents as well. My grandma was saying, just wait till you're a bit older. But she's obviously thinking, what if her husband doesn't like it later down the line? So there's a different element creeping in there. But my parents were kind of worried. They're like, are you sure? And then I obviously put it on for a while, and we had religious education RE classes at school, so I would be like the cheerleader for Islam. I would demonstrate how to pray, and I would kind of just like really big up Islam. It was a big part of my identity. But then I was a bit of a tomboy growing up, so I loved sports. I started playing football and doing things, and I was like, oh, this is a headache. So I was like, Mom, Dad, you were right. This is not going to work for me. I'm taking it off. And then shortly after that, we moved to Saudi Arabia. And again, I was still such a believing Muslim inside. And it was almost
What
like,
age were you, Nuriyah, when
I
you
was
moved to Saudi
9.
Arabia? You were still 9. Okay.
Yeah, so I was 9 when we left England and
Okay.
moved. And then, so yeah, when I got to Saudi Arabia, it was almost like a blessing, like which family gets to go and live in the country where the house of God is, essentially. Like we could go to the house of God on the weekends. And it was like, wow, because other than that, I knew nothing about Saudi, just it was like some vast desert, but that's where the Kaaba is. So, yeah, well, once we moved to Saudi Arabia, because the dynamic is if you get headhunted from like an expat company, so you're living in a compound essentially, which is just like, I'd say, a mini holiday camp full of people from every single background you can imagine. And then the schools that are set up for those kids are also like international schools, and it was co-ed. And I got there and I was just like obviously interacting with people from all over the place, and just my personality was developing more and more, and I was generally like, I am a pretty liberal person, and my parents were quite liberal growing up as well. So we're all like immersed in this whole new world, and I'm hearing about the Druze, the religion from Lebanon, with which is kind of a mixture of Christianity and Islam. And I was like, wow, I was just bewildered. I was like, wow. And then I saw like my Shia friends in Saudi, how they would never like openly say they were Shia at school as well, and where they would go and pray for like Friday Jummah mosque, where all the Sunnis would go, the Shias would go almost to underground places because they were persecuted in Saudi. And I would just see like the Wahhabism of the state of Saudi Arabia. I'm a 9-year-old girl, yeah, I'm forced to wear an abaya literally the second like we leave the compound to the point where I enter school.
Really? That
Yeah.
early age, 9?
Yeah. And you can't take like taxis by yourself. It's just insanely dangerous. And again, you're like, so I lived there for a good 9 years. So I lived there till I was 16. But growing up, as you're getting older, so like once you get to about 14, 15, you're expected to cover your head as well when you go out. And then there was like the Mutawwa, which is the Islamic police who kind of walk around shopping. Yeah, to try and enforce that. But at the same time, because these men are so like sexually deprived, if you're even like a 14-year-old walking around a shopping mall and they see like this much ankle, they'll start following you, and you have to run into the next shop and tell security, and like everything just so I was experiencing this whole like Islam play out in all these different ways.
Wow.
So I was,
That's
yeah,
incredible.
so sorry, long story short, but like, and then we moved to the UAE, and I just, essentially I kept getting more and more liberal. So I was like, I really believe in Allah, but I never really prayed 5 times a day because I was like, that's a lot.
So you're more like sort of spiritual Muslim rather than the strict harsh. Were you then? Did you know about the folklore and the Egyptian, the Islamic stories? You know, the Sirah of Muhammad and what he used to do to after wars and stuff like that, or were you just concerned yourself with the spiritual side of Islam?
I knew nothing about like Muhammad in terms of any of the bad things, but I did know enough of what I thought were all the good things. So, you're taught the basics. So like he stopped little daughters being buried alive, and he freed slaves, and his final sermon said, treat your women well, and the best of you are those who treat your women. So fully like brainwashed with all the good stuff, like all those crazy stories as well, like when Muhammad was born in his cradle, like when he rocked, the moon would rock to the side of his cradle, and all of this. And I kind of like knew the major stories, like the stories of the prophets in the Quran and all of that, because we'd watched The Message as well. My parents were quite into teaching us about the actual culture of Islam through that lens. So, we'd watch like the Ten Commandments as well. We'd kind of like have these discussions. But I think a lot of the effect was after 9/11 as well. We were living in Saudi Arabia, so everything changed for us. Like the security in the compound, there were machine guns and sandbags outside, and our compound was under threat. We had terrorist drills at school. And I think that was a kind of turning point for my parents as well, because nobody wanted to kind of say that this is in any form justified by Islam, but cognitive dissonance kicks in. But my parents started like delving more into Sufism after that. And I think that really impacted me as well, because I was like, yeah, I don't like the way that if Saudi is the real Islam, it's horrible. I'm like, after, I was telling my dad and my brother, like after your Friday prayers, they're literally beheading people. And it's a casual Friday in Saudi Arabia. And, you get your hand chopped off, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, so I mean, essentially we are like, in my family is still very much a believing Muslim family, but I really truly believed it, and I knew the basics, but I had question marks. I had question marks on like Queen Sheba, King Solomon, Zulkarnain, Gog and Magog. I always had those, but from the woman's perspective, I thought we were covered in Islam pretty much. No pun intended.
Wow. So your parents are still Muslims, but they were always sort of kind of liberal, because from what you said, they were asking you if you were sure wearing the hijab. So they kind of liberal Muslims.
Yeah, because they're essentially born and brought up in the UK, so that they're like Western educated as well, and then moving away from extended family and spending the good part of our lives as a like separate family in the GCC. We had been traveling in those months. Obviously, you're like very privileged to live an expat life, so every week or month of school holidays would be shooting off to like Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam. So we saw the world together, and obviously it's like I think that's one of the main things: education and travel and all these kind of things that broaden your mind, and you realize that I land in a completely foreign culture. They have no idea who Muhammad and Islam was. So I think, and again, they are curious individuals. They appreciate intellectual honesty, which is why I can sit here in my house and say what I'm saying to you today.
This was going to be my next question. So you're actually, so they're okay with it now, you leaving Islam?
As in, yeah, I mean, obviously they weren't best pleased. When my dad first saw the term ex-Muslim on my Twitter, he was like, what? Are you an ex-Muslim? And I was like, well, I didn't mean for it to come off that harshly. But yes, I mean, there's a whole movement out there to try and normalize dissent. So I will use that term if need be. I was once Muslim and I no longer am. But again, obviously they're not best pleased. And a good portion of my family still don't know. It's just a matter of time before someone stumbles on a video. But I'll cross that bridge when it comes. But yeah, they also really know that, like, again, your child is not someone you can control. I have like my own thoughts, and I have the right to express them, and they respect that, which is why we can coexist.
Did they ever try to talk you out of it?
Of course. Obviously, coming from the safety angle first and foremost, which my mother, I completely empathize with that. I would be worried if I had a daughter who was taking on essentially what you take on when you speak about Islam. And as you said, even in the UK, but yes, of course, they would rather have a daughter that is a bit less rebellious, I'd say.
What how did the conversation go? Sort of what sort of techniques or conversations they'll try to employ to sort of talk you out of it?
Well, just obviously, like, don't you definitely just want to carry on focusing on your career, and you can always come back to this later, and is this really kind of something you want to do? And what you say is always out there forever, and what if you change your mind, which will never happen? But it's like predominantly it is to do with potentially safety, and I guess they're worried about the backlash. But I mean, we've had, like, this is obviously a while back now. I've been active for about a year, so we've had consistent conversations. And I think I'm gonna, go out on a limb here and say, if they were to be confronted with it now, my mother or father would say, well, my daughter has every right to say what she's saying. So
All right.
I think so.
All right.
I think I've got them to that position.
Do you, on the other hand, try to be a bit greedy and see if you can actually lure them out of Islam?
Oh my God, honey, all the time, all day, every day, when I can drop a little trinket of wisdom, I do, like my dad and my sister were making a truce not to like argue because she's got exams. And my mum was writing down the days of the months that the truce was between. And I was like, oh, it's kind of like the Quran, where it's like during the sacred months, don't fight them. But then once it's done, kill the polytheists wherever you find them. And then it just goes silent. But I mean, it's planted. You can go and read it yourself.
I'm sure that the lunch or dinner time would be quite exciting in your household.
Yeah. You just need to know when to cut it off and, just crack jokes.
Right. Now, so United Arab Emirates, was it Dubai or Abu Dhabi?
It was Dubai.
Dubai, which is the more liberal of. I've lived there for quite some time, so I know how it is there. And
oh, okay, wow, yes. I mean, who knows? We could have lived very close to each other, but we'll talk about that off air.
Yeah. I think we did at some point. We did talk about it. So yeah, Dubai. If anybody's been to Dubai before, it's probably one of the most liberal cities in the Arab world. It's very international. You can go out clubbing. Nightlife is brilliant there. There's some other Islamic tradition.
You got everything, yeah.
But the things are not in your face. Like, you can quite be content with, the expats. I've known English people who left England at the age of 25 and they're like 50 and they're still there and they don't want to go back. They just love it there.
Yeah, they do. They love the tax-free lifestyle, and also a lot of them love the work hard, play hard life there, The weekends are just like boozy brunches and beaches and
yeah. If you're a managing director in Dubai and you're like, Anglo-Saxon here, you're having a laugh, basically.
Yeah. And you just think back to miserable England where you're paying so much in tax. You're like, why would I come back?
Yeah. Just the summer months can be a bit difficult, but
Oh yeah, you've got to leave during the summer. I could never. I was out of there in a shot during summer.
Yeah. Well, it's everything's air conditioned there. Even the bus stops now. There's a bus stop. The bus stop is air conditioned, Wi-Fi within it, and it's so
crazy,
brilliant.
Like going from AC to like insane heat and humidity, and then boom, AC again. I was like, this can't be good for you all the time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Plus, you miss kind of nature because nature isn't prominent there.
Your eyes literally crave like real greenery. Like when I would travel so much because I was like, my eyes need a holiday from Sheikh Zayed Road.
Yeah. So what happened? So you were about 16, 17. This is now you're interested maybe in, boys at this point. You're thinking outside. You're becoming a woman, and what was your mind here? Were you then taking Islam, the same version of Islam that you brought from Saudi Arabia, or things have started to mellow down and you were interested in more different things?
So no, that's a really good question actually, because that transition was, again, I'd say I'm mellowing down in the way because I'm like, as you said, like I'm just becoming more of who I am, and again just wanting to be a normal teenager really. But I again still believed wholeheartedly in Islam. I was still very proud to be a Muslim. I thought Saudi Arabia had got it wrong. I thought Wahhabism is not the right manifestation of Islam. Coming to Dubai, now I'm at the age where I can actually get behind a car and drive. The abaya is a choice now. I don't have to wear it, even if I'm, going to the mall or whatever. I'm allowed to sit at restaurants with boys, like no one's policing that. And yet I can still hear the call to prayer 5 times a day. We still get holidays during Ramadan. We get days off for Eid. Like, the night Laylatul Miraj and Laylatul Qadr are still respected. So I was like, this is perfect. Dubai has got the perfect solution. They let you live, and they also say, yo, this is our religion, and you just live comfortably in between that. So yeah, I'm very naive of me at the time, but I thought that was a great transition from Saudi Arabia. And I thought they've in terms of trying to keep one foot in the modern world and also hold on to religion as sacredly, Dubai has like hit the nail on the head.
Let's be honest. If you're not still in that intellectual realm of really trying to epistemology and all these deep things, and you're a teenager who's trying to party and have fun with their friends, yet keep a little bit of spiritual life, Dubai would have been the perfect place. You don't see yourself, there's no challenge. Things are sort of coherent, things make sense. The mosque is there, but then also the nightclub that they sort of on a Friday night to go with some of your mates and or go to the beach. It's there. So there isn't that much of a conflict going on here. You don't really push any agenda.
Yeah, in theory, yeah, completely. And I was able to do all of those things. The only thing in Dubai is that, again, just implicitly, because you are a Muslim, for example, I mean, again, in Dubai, the age is 21 to get into clubs anyway, but, high school people do get ways around that. But even so, once you reach the age limit of 21, for example, walking into a bar as a Muslim, I mean, now they've just changed the laws recently. They've kind of reformed it. But before, every time I did that, that would be risky because as a Muslim, you're not even entitled to a license to drink, which basically gives you permission to sit at one of those bars. Now it's okay because you're sitting there and there's an Emirati and a Kandura who's drinking next to you. And you're like, okay, well, if I'm going against Islam right now, so are you. But you could be CID. So in that case, I'm doubly screwed. But
interesting.
The thing is, yeah.
Because I never saw it from a Muslim female point of view. When I was out there, and obviously I'm a male, and even though I could speak the Arabic language, but I was an expat because I came from Europe at that point. So I've never seen females. If they doubt at the door, the bouncers, you're a female Muslim, then they will be asking you questions.
Well, yeah, I mean, theoretically, no, because it's really the bouncers and stuff. This is like actually according to the law, if the police or CID were to come, because technically no Muslim is meant to be drinking, right? So technically you're not allowed on those premises which serve alcohol. So if there was to be an incident of trouble, which, as you know, in Dubai could be as basic as someone brushing past you too heavily, you could be in a lot more trouble. And even like, for example, if you are coming back from one of those nights and, the police or anyone stopped, they do read your name out to you and like stare back at you.
Did you say Mirage? You used to go to the Mirage, right?
Oh my God, yeah, the one and only.
So that's the one behind Al Nasser Cinema. Remember?
Is that on Al Safou Road?
Yeah. I think there was Al Nasser Cinema, and there was like a void. There's almost like a desert, and there's suddenly, that there's that nightclub. There's an outdoor area, an indoor area.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah, exactly.
Wow, right. Yeah, it's crazy, and obviously the Sheikh Zayed Road. This is where all the nightlife is, and.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like, they're all usually you're okay because they're all set within hotels, or you've got these ones that are kind of linked to a beach or kind of out in the desert.
Yeah.
So yeah, usually you're okay. But I mean, genuinely, there's always that underlying fear that as a Muslim, you don't really have the right to act the same way as like British expats who aren't Muslim can act, for example. There's always that added burden on me. So even if like they were to see my ID or something, they read your name back to you like 2 or 3 times, emphasizing like you're a Muslim, like why are you not behaving like a Muslim girl kind of thing. Again, it works in your favor sometimes because if they find out you're a Muslim once or twice, the police are like, oh, we'll drop you all the way home. And I was like, how very nice of you.
Well, you remember you told me about this episode going into Egypt and the airport. You're trying to say I'm English, and then no.
Yeah. I was like, what do you want, my granddad's passport? And they're like, Hassan. I'm like, okay, so what? But yeah.
Oh, it's funny. They're obviously trying to have you on. The Egyptians have a sick sense of humor sometimes. It's crazy. But so how long were you in Dubai for then?
So I was there for my final years of schooling, so 16 to just before I turned 18. But then I went back to live there straight after university. So I moved back when I was 21 for a good number of years until I came back to the UK.
Right. So, okay. So you're sort of on and off between the UK and the United Arab Emirates for some time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. And all that time, all to the age. So when let's say you pass your graduation, you're now 21, 22. Was there a slightly different variation of Islam in your head? Or was it still that liberal Islam that you had in Dubai?
Okay, so now I've gone further into education and different continent now. So I'm meeting people from the UK again, like my roots, people I left from like primary school. But I've come back from having lived a whole life in the Middle East. So I felt very like a lot more connected to like people from like the Middle East and like Arabs and the Arab culture more so than I did to UK culture, for example. But again, I chose my university specifically because it had a focus on like the Middle East, on Asia, and they had modules in Islamic law, which no other UK university offered. So I was, I felt very comfortable doing that. And that was actually my first brush with when we were waiting outside the Islamic law module. The first person in my life I've ever heard say this, but he introduced himself and he said, yeah, I'm studying this module, but I'm not a Muslim anymore. I'm ex-Muslim. And I was shook. I was like, excuse me? Like, what? And he's like, yeah.
There is such a thing?
Yeah. I was like, in my head, I'm like, how dare you? Who can leave this? Why would you leave Islam? Like, what's wrong with you? And he was, and I'd never heard that. And honestly, I was so cocky. I was like, well, you know what? Maybe after this module, you'll rethink your decision and like come back. And he was probably like, you idiot. Yeah, I should actually message him, find him on LinkedIn and say, I was the Muppet back in 2013. I'm sorry. But yeah, I'd never heard of the fact. And again, sitting through this module, here's me in all of my, inherent like feminism. I believe in equality. I've gone to English schools. You understand the concept of like, women and having completely equal rights. Yet here I am writing an essay on Islamic marriages and like going like writing about halala and trying to like find ways in my head to think why God would prescribe such a thing, or like, how this talaq works and how it's inherently skewed in the favor of men. But again, I like didn't even let those light bulbs stay on long enough. I just kept writing my way and made a conclusion of like, Allah knows best, sent it. Like, do you know what I mean?
So your studies were related to legal systems and law and stuff like that? That's your first?
Yeah, so my degree was in law and economics, but I chose this university specifically so I could go into Islamic law. So my this is how much I still believed in it. I wanted to actually move back to the Middle East and practice Islamic law in Dubai. That worked out very differently, but that was why I took it. So wow. Yeah, I was still very, very much believing at this point. Again, I'm liberal. I'm open to new experiences. I get on with people from everywhere, but in my heart of hearts, I truly believed in Allah still.
So what did you think of women's rights? Let's say you're at the age of 23, now 24, so kind of mature now. Did you think there were enough women rights in Islam?
No, but I didn't know enough for it to ring alarm bells. Do you see what I mean? Like even this essay I'm saying was the one element where I actually had to touch on it from an educational perspective, and I didn't even let those light bulbs linger. I was like, no, God, like there's reasons for all of this. And also, probably selfishly, I was saying, oh, well, I live in England, like none of this really applies to me anyway, but this is God's command. Like, in a weird state of cognitive dissonance, because you're like, again, maybe it was more of I genuinely believe that it was like more of a personal connection between God and myself, because I always thought like even if I did something that was wrong in God's eyes, or if I've got a friend that's gay, I mean, in my God says that friend is eternally sinning and is going to end up in hell, but I'm associating myself with them and I really like them as a person. But I was like, well, God knows in my heart that I believe in him. And he also knows that like, I have no ill intention. So I always thought he could go beyond these. I'm not a suckler for rules, basically.
Right. Now, maybe a year or two before you left Islam, when did the penny drop? When did you go, oh, something isn't right here?
So this was actually massively like I think the turning point in my entire life was when I was living back in the UAE as an adult, and I had been married for about a year and a half. Yeah, at this point. And basically it was a horribly abusive like situation. And I didn't say anything for a very long time, but the second that like, someone in my family clocked on and my friends were like, no, enough is enough. I tried to get out of that situation. And as I did, the Dubai police actually called me and told me about this Zawjiyya law in Arabic that I'd never heard of. And he was just like, yes, we have put Zawjiyya on you. And I was like, on my way to work.
What is it called again?
Zawjiyya.
Yes, that's where you have to submit to the husband. They call you into their own almost custody for you to return home.
That's literally what he said. He said, if you don't come to the station or return to your husband's house within this date, we will arrest you and forcibly take you back to your marital home, and you can't leave without his permission.
Yeah.
So you're sending somebody into a hostage situation with an abusive person where they fear for their life. Like, so you can imagine like my kind of more westernized mind, my parents' westernized mind, and us putting our heads together and saying, no judge.
The literal translation is the house of obedience.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so actually, honey, I wanted to ask you about this because when I like got over this whole incident and was researching what the hell happened to me, how dare you, where does this come from? I researched it, and the country that I could see most of like the discussions around was Egypt. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very prominent in Egypt, and there are a few movies made about it in the 70s and the 80s trying to stop that. They've changed a lot of that now. That's very much challenged in Egyptian society, and women now can divorce men, which things are changing slowly. Not the best, but this is one thing here that's like absolutely disgusting, and it's based on Islamic doctrine. It's proper Islamic. Remember, Egypt is. Even though Saudi Arabia, this is where Mecca is, and where Prophet Muhammad is supposed to have been buried, and it's the birth of Islam in Saudi Arabia. But Egypt has Al-Azhar mosque and university, which is almost like the Vatican of Islam for Christianity. And there's a lot of legislation. There's a lot of intellectual writers also come from Egypt. So Egypt has been renowned for maybe Saudi Arabia is the spiritual realm of Islam, and Egypt is where you come up with the philosophies and the laws and the thinking behind it and the rationale behind why you should do what you need to do within Islamic doctrine. So between these two countries, Islam is very, very strong, but in slightly different variation, because there is no Sharia laws in Egypt, for example. We have more of a French law, with a bit of infusion of some Islamic in civil laws, but otherwise it's not there to be seen, especially for punishments and thieves and adulterers and stuff like that. You don't see that in Egypt. But it's
same thing with Tunisia, I think, right? Because again, they gave women the right to seek divorce through the courts, like Pakistan did as well. Like all of these countries.
Tunisia's done better. They had a president called Bourguiba, who's actually banned male Muslims to marry other wives.
Oh, amazing! So they've actually banned polygamy.
Yes.
Wow. Okay,
Tunisia's a little bit ahead. For such a situation, but they had that sort of the enlightened dictator. Unfortunately, it's still not on the basis of society. Still have kind of split, but one president who came, very much like what's happening in Saudi Arabia right now, the Bin Salman movement.
Yeah,
where there's one, but the fear of that, long live the king, and another king comes who changes the entire thing again.
Undoes it all. Yeah,
it's very dangerous. That's why I like the change from the bottom up, not the top down change. I don't think it's very sustainable.
Yeah. No, exactly. And just going back to so like the house of marriage thing as well, even in the GCC when I tried to research like, how much is this applied, it's not really yeah, the House of Obedience, like what a name, it's not really even applied in the GCC as much. So I was thinking like this lawyer or whatever who's reenacted this kind of almost archaic Sharia law, we can call it now. Most Muslim states don't even have it. And Pakistan has no situation where even in the hudud punishments that this any concept of a house of obedience came about. So I was genuinely shocked that this was a thing and they are considering this as like a casual fundamental part of their normal law in this day and age. So again, the only way to say no to that and refuse is literally by like filing for a divorce before they can enact the arrest, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, and then even doing that, they kind of say, okay, you want to file for a divorce in the courts, then give up your meher or whatever it's called. And I was like, okay, like anything to just get out of this situation.
Yeah.
And again, no. So that Zawjiyah thing was like hanging over me consistently. Like the police were calling me at ridiculous hours, and then obviously like. I mean, a lot of them are very misogynistic. So I would end up like sitting in the police station and I'm being very respectful. Like I had my abaya on, like I was, acting like a good Muslim woman, let's say, and I was still a believing Muslim at this point. But they would just sit there like with miswak and like pass me from one officer to go chat to another one for 20 minutes about nothing, not write down a single thing I'm saying. Like when I would literally say I'm being like stalked, harassed, followed, like I think there's some mental health issues that he has, and they're just like, but why? Like, why you do like that, Yahi? Like, yeah, go pray. Like, I was like, are you listening to anything I'm saying? Like, and as an expat here, do I not have like any guarantee from you guys of my safety? Or
Was he a
anyway,
Muslim as well, Nuriyah?
yeah, he was exactly. And I mean that's why I guess you can implement this and stuff, right? So then again, they make your life hell, and before they even accept your application in the court, they sent me to like family counseling, like Islamic style. So you're sitting with like this Emirati man in an office. And again, so if the other party is like extremely not wanting to let go of you, he was basically trying to convince this Emirati man that I had like a jinn on me or like I was possessed, and
You're
that's why I want.
kidding.
No,
Jesus.
no, literally, you have to like sit there and prove your sanity and be like, I'm not possessed. And the Emirati is like lapping up the possession thing and being like, go
You're
to this mosque, go pray, go see a sheikh, go see. And I'm like, what? So yeah, you go through levels of that. And to be honest, it got really, really, really bad, like the harassment. And then my ex-husband, like amped up his games as well and started whatever black magic or aspects of Islam, they started throwing these potions outside my house, and he was following me on my way to work and stalking my friends, and like it just got really, really bad to the point where the police wanted to arrest me to forcibly take me back because he was deliberately dragging out the divorce case. So they kept asking for my passport, and as a woman in Dubai, you do not have to go with the police between the hours of like 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. unless there's a woman officer present. Like that's one of your rights. Okay. So
Okay.
when they tried to come and get me, they had 4 officers present, and my father was out of town on business. And I said, there is no way I'm coming with 4 officers. And they were like, okay, fine, come tomorrow. And again, they're asking for your passport. So when you hand over your passport in the UAE as an expat, you're, that's scary stuff, because essentially then you are at the behest of them, and you end up in one of the police stations, and who knows how long you're in custody before they even give you a trial. I basically didn't want to end up like a news item or someone begging Boris Johnson to get me out of the UAE. Like I did not want it to get to that, no.
I would have liked to see that. Boris going berserk on.
He probably wouldn't. That's why I had to like fend for myself. He'd be like, what? No, I've got to deal with like my Partygate scandal. But yeah, so thankfully, I mean, right when, my lawyer she basically said, look, these men are not going to let you go this easily. Like, you know, and there was so much happening behind the scenes. She's like, you know, the top officer there has got taken a bribe. Your ex-husband has been camping outside this police station, befriending them. Like, they were not going to let me like get out of that situation, essentially. So she
Was
basically...
he a local as well? Was he an Emirati?
No, but he was born there and had lived there his whole life. So yeah, I mean, they wouldn't give him. You know how it is in Dubai; they don't really give you nationality. But yeah, so he'd lived there and he knows the way it works, kind of, you know, under the radar. And you've just got to have like a good couple of top dog friends in the CID and police, and you'll be okay. So yeah, basically my lawyer was like, right, they're going to ask for your passport now. So I went in and I was literally on the verge of being like, you know what, you guys win. Like, I'm tired. I don't even want to play this like Tom and Jerry game anymore, or like whatever. So I was just about to go in to hand in my passport, and my lawyer came out the police station and she was like, okay, like, she's like, do not give your passport in. Like, these guys, they are going to put so many other charges on you. They're going to add everything to this case. Like, they're going to like blow it up, like theft, adult, who knows? Like, you could be in. So I was like, listen, I'll give them my passport, but I'll call the British embassy first, just to let them know that this is the situation, so I don't end up like a lost number in the system. So I called like this emergency number for British expats in Dubai, and I literally was in the car opposite the police station with the passport in my hand, like fully defeated, like game over, life's over. And this person on the phone, I literally just said the whole situation. I was like, these are all the charges they're trying to put on me. This is what's happening. They're asking for my passport. I'm about to walk in. I just want you to know where I am and, you know, what's happening. And he just said, do you still have your passport in your hand? And I was like, yes. And he's like, right, I can't give you any legal advice, but all I'm saying is that if you're in their country, we can't really mess with the law of the land. So I would say get on the next plane home to where you have rights and where all these charges that they're trying to put on you don't even exist. And I literally was like, you bloody angel, like, I don't know who you are, but I literally, like, I went straight home, packed a bag, got on the next flight. My like friend just booked me the next flight out to Baku, and then Baku all the way back to London. And yeah, and then obviously like the divorce thing, I was just like, you know what, I don't care. Just I want to see those words in Arabic saying I am divorced from him. But my lawyer worked on that separately in Dubai, and then I obviously got that sent over, and I was like, that's it, I'm done. Because even though it meant like didn't mean that much to me anyway to be Islamically divorced, because like for all intents and purposes in the UK, I've never been married. I like for my own, like just my own personal self, I wanted to see those words in ink.
Psychological, closure.
Yeah. And honey, you should have seen the judgment of like these judges, and like what they offered me as, like, you know how the man is supposed to pay, I think it's called what's it called? The monthly payment? Nafaka, right? They were like, this many dirhams for lipstick, this many dirhams for... I was like, seriously, all the stalking, abuse, harassment, and you're saying this is for her lipstick, this is for some new clothing items. I was like,
I've got to put on my Arabic accent now. What do you mean lipstick? Your life is over, you know? You have no husband. Why do you need to look pretty anymore?
yeah, exactly. They were walking
no life.
Yeah, thank you, UAE judges. Great story.
That's
Great
funny.
judges.
Lipstick. Expenses for lipstick.
Honestly, that's your nafaka. Take some lipstick money. Yeah.
You should just, I wear the most expensive lipstick in the world.
I know, right? About that, let me send you my brands.
It's so funny. How old were you?
Oh gosh. So a lot of this, so I got married at 23, and then I was out of it by like 26, came back to England, and then leaving Islam I was 27. So that all, but when I try and look back at like the exact like chronology of what happened, because of how intense and traumatic it was, and I came back to the UK and I had this new form of therapy, which is called EMDR. They basically like wipe a lot of those memories like out of you. It's brilliant therapy, by the way. Like I need to make a separate video on this. It's incredible. But so all of those, like that whole thing in my brain now is a bit of a mesh. Like I can't pinpoint this. Like if someone's like, oh, what year did you flee your house in Dubai? I don't have that. Like it's all a blur to me. I actually have to go through my phone and be like, that's when I texted my dad. That's when my dad said, okay, I'm wait. Like, you know what I mean?
That's like the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind with Jim Carrey, when they used to erase your memory from traumatic experiences.
Yeah. That's a brilliant film. I watched it years ago.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So then maybe then was there a trigger? Were you then reading a lot of laws around Sharia, around women rights, and then while you're going through this personally, you've kind of stumbled upon things that you go, my goodness, how did I not see this before?
Yeah, so I mean, like when I got back to the UK and like things had settled and I had therapy then, and I was like, okay, I've got my mind back now. Like
Very sorry. I think, Nuriyah, we kind of lost you. So Nuriyah hopefully will be with us again in a few seconds. She must have dropped in terms of internet. Maybe if you can refresh and come back, Nuriyah. I'm very sorry, guys. Hopefully we'll have Nuriyah back soon. She froze, and I guess her internet must have dropped. She'll be back. Very interesting backstory, and it is something like that. Most people will have something to trigger situations like this. Unfortunately for Nuriyah, the situation was quite personal for her to leave Islam. Hopefully she'll be back with us very soon to elaborate on this. Thank you, Ultra, for the super chat. I'm not sure what you mean by block. If you can sort of elaborate on that, please, that'd be great. Oh, this is funny for sure. Hopefully she'll be with us again soon. Not sure about the reliability of the internet in the UK. I'm just keeping an eye on messages just in case she's having trouble. So I'm thinking of maybe going through some of these comments until she's here. Friend Ayman is saying even the change from the bottom up has to be initiated and encouraged from the top. Yes, I agree. You're gonna have to have a meeting point. You need some mandates from the top authorities to sort of encourage the change and facilitate the change at least. So I do agree you're gonna need some of that effect. Makes things a lot easier. I gotta say it as it's spelled. Well, block. Blork. Okay. Well, I'm still not getting. Oh, here she is. Hello.
Hi, honey. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there.
Internet must have dropped. That's all right.
Yeah, Allah's angry. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I was trying to read some of the comments while you're away.
Sure.
And Ultra is actually, thank you for the super chat. And
G block.
Is this something that you're familiar with? Because I am not quite sure.
It means godless. Godless block.
Oh, okay. Is that like in Urdu or something?
No, I don't know. Ultra has just been there since day one on my channel as well, and we just shout out G Block.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm sorry. It must be an inside joke then. I'm not familiar.
I think Ultra's trying to spread the G Block fire.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, like, yeah, there you go. Here we go. Now it makes sense. The flame in there. So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I hope I explained that well enough, Ultra. Oh yeah,
so,
not anymore.
yeah, not anymore. We're going to get to the juicy bit because now, so you are now on the verge. You've stumbled upon a lot of things that made you start thinking, what the hell? The women seem to have very little rights in Islam, and they seem to be, have almost having the short end of the stick when you compare to your fellow males.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
No, because I started doing some like detective work. As I said, I literally Googled like what is Da'a Zawjiyya, and I started reading these old papers again, as I said, from Egypt, and discussions on what obedience of a woman should mean, and if obedience, can stem from anything from like answering back to saying like no to her husband or to wanting to leave him. Anything can be construed as like disobedience essentially, and there was that clause in there for basically, a disobedient woman could be forced to be obedient again, and that includes in like forcefully returning her to her husband, basically to his captivity. And then I was like, okay, whatever. This is Egypt. It's not even Saudi, but as you said, like Allah said, like that there's clearly Islam behind this. But again, I'm trying to be like, no. This is Egypt. Maybe again, this is just how these GCC countries operate. Let me see what like Saudi says, and then again, I studied Islamic law at school, and I was like, look, I cannot deny the fact that Sharia law derives from the Quran and the Islamic sources, right? So let me actually go back to where in Islam would it ever give the permission for a law like this to come about? Like, where does it say that in Islam? So like I was looking for the provision for it. So I went to the Quran and I was like, women in the Quran. And then I was like, obviously everything's available at our fingertips nowadays, thankfully. So I went and I was like, you know what, screw this nonsense of reading this in Arabic to hear the poetry and blah blah blah, give it to me in English. Like, let me read this word for word in English. And I started reading like Surah Nisa and the chapter on women, and then I was like, no, like there is no way the Quran is casually saying like you may beat your wife, and like men are a degree above their women, and this and that, and like all of these. It was horrible. But again, I was like, okay, that's potentially where they could have got that law from. It makes sense. And if I was an astute lawyer, I would also use that to establish a law like that, because you can. You want
yeah. But
that
remember,
verse.
Nuriyah, in
Yeah.
Islam, you have four different imams with slightly different variation and interpretation of Islam.
Yeah.
So if you follow Abu Hanifa or Hanbali or Shafi'i, there are slight different variations of subtle Islamic doctrines within the interpretations of the imams or those who added the legislation of Islam later on. And it depends on what country you live in. So some countries follow a slightly different variation of Islam, which makes it, again, I mean, it poses the question, how can that be from God? Even at the point of application, people differ, which is, it makes it so human. I just want to add, guys, if you can just bear with us with your questions, because in the last 20 minutes of the show, we will take your questions for sure, and we'll try to answer them, especially those that sort of don't work for us in terms of the narration of Nuriyah's story.
So honey, just on that point, I just also want to say, so because I completely understand what you were saying, right? So again, in the same way when I was younger and I thought, oh, Saudi is distorting Islam by doing this, intense form of Wahhabism. I also thought, okay, well, the UAE is kind of misapplied. And I also thought these are men in positions of power abusing their power, and they're just misogynistic, like very patriarchal men. And I also thought, oh, okay, Egypt's discussing this. Egypt's got its own kind of take on Islam. So that was very much my defense. So when I was doing the detective work, so to speak, I was doing it in a way because I was like, now I'm going to be living in the UK again. And if I come across people and I tell my story and they turn around to me and say, well, that's what Islam prescribes or allows, I would be able to defend myself and say, no, that those are just some men who have distorted Islam, and real Islam is not like that at all. Like, my prophet gave us rights and all of that kind of thing. So I actually went into looking into it from a position to defend it going forward. So that was my starting point. I wanted to be like, this is what men said. This is what, these Egyptian rulings say. This is what my lived experience was. But Allah and Muhammad have my back. Like, I'm going to find stuff here that's going to say the opposite. Like, screw you, men. You distorted this perfect message to allow that to happen to me, kind of thing. So that was my mindset going in. As you said, I moved past all those like Dawah Zawjiyah, what it was, obedience, all these rulings. And I was like, now I'm talking about the Quran. I'm like, these are God's words. So if this is not sitting right with me, if I find something in here that enables a law like that, then we have a problem. And that is exactly what, when it was the Quran speaking to me and saying those things, I was like, how am I going to defend it? Like, now you're asking me to defend the indefensible. And then I was like, okay, Allah, you let me down. Muhammad he would have my back. And I went and I started reading Hadith and Sunnah.com in English. I was like, what was the Prophet's marriages like? I didn't even know the age of Aisha, honey. Literally, I did not even know the age of Aisha. No one had, conveniently,
Really?
no one had, yeah. Nothing. Going through all that schooling in the Middle East where you're taught Islamic as a subject, it would be like, what year was the Prophet born? When was the first Hijrah? No. Like, nothing about like how old was like Aisha when he consummated the marriage with her.
9, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it 9? Yeah, 6.
Yeah.
They got engaged at the age of 6.
Married at 6, consummated at 9. Yeah.
9. Yeah.
So you can imagine my absolute like disgust, because when I was confronted with the two pieces of scripture that I thought would essentially prove to me how, fundamentally wrong those men were, and it turned out that these scriptures are what gives those men that power, that's when, like, in my head, it was just like a massive, like,
Nuriyah, there is a game that they should add to the Paralympics, which is a word gymnast.
Yeah.
And this is where, the beating of the wife's verse, which means it's supposed to mean tickle.
Tickle.
Well, apparently it's all right. Obviously not, but they're saying now that I've heard so many different. I was on Derek podcast, and people would come and say, no, a daraba here, a drabhunna means to stay away from them.
Yeah, but you're already doing that when you've separated your beds.
Exactly. That's the one before.
Yeah, exactly. So, and also when they say like, oh, that they're talking about like hitting someone with like the miswak thing or whatever, like really lightly. Again, if you look into these Islamic sources, that's not wrong, because the way to beat your wife is actually compared to the way they would tame their like their shuttle and like tame the horses. So it's like the different, and they would do that with those like leafy branchy things,
like they do in Afghanistan. When they walk around,
exactly.
And the mutawa in Saudi Arabia, the guy with the little stick, he used to go around and if you're not, it's prayer time and you're not praying.
Get the flock in line. Exactly. In Saudi Arabia, when I lived there, you could get penalized if you like were on the road when there was a mosque nearby and the call to prayer had gone and the prayer had started. So yeah, the level of policing is insane.
It's incredible. So interesting. So it wasn't the trauma of the divorce and that it's actually you gone into it to reform Islam, to say, hold on, you guys got it wrong. I'm going to delve deep into this and I'm going to find the essence of Islam, which is pure, which is great, and I'm going to find it. But when you dived, and I hate that they changed the word, the past tense of dive in America to dove.
Oh, really?
It's actually I was, because I've always thought it was wrong.
Yeah.
And it's and it's dived, but then in America they changed it in the dictionary because it's such a common mistake that they're distorted the language and said now dove is a
officially the right way.
They made it up a word, like it's a word now.
So you'd say when you deep dove into Islam.
Or when doves cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you found out once you're there. Hold on a second. If it's in the Quran, this is the straightforward word of God, and it says exactly what you were fearing or what you
Yeah,
were
I was like,
suffering.
this is one thing I can say is untouched by man, in my mind at that point. I was like, this is God's final message to mankind. And as I said, like, the reason I hadn't lost my faith going through this whole divorce and all of that was because I put it down to an abuse of power by men, but I never ever thought that my God holds women in such low regard, or that my God would allow women to go through such a thing. So again, like growing up in Islam, you internalize and start believing so much of this crap, like men are allowed 4 women and all, and you just really start thinking it's normal. Especially growing up in Saudi, I think that added to my experience, where we drive around and like a villa would have 4 identical parts to it, and you're like, this is a man with 4 wives, and as the Quran says, he's treating them equally or whatever, so you start really kind of believing that this is the way of life that women are okay with. And I mean, it's bewildering to me how you could study the Quran, but it makes so much sense, especially for non-Arabic speakers. Like, I was studying the Quran back in the day in England, and I never got to Surah Nisa in English for me to process it with, a mind in the way I could before. But I was carrying around that book of translations. But as a 9-year-old, I think I got from past like the first 3 pages, like Fatiha, I memorized, and a couple of others. And then I was like, this is also like Shakespearean English. I don't know what really is going on here,
Especially you're not a native Arabic speaker. So for somebody like in Pakistan or Nigeria or those countries, or Malaysia, Indonesia, you're a Muslim, but the lost word of God is given to you in a language that is not natively yours.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I was like, I'm done with the mystique behind this thing. Like, even I tried to read it when I was a teenager as well, and to really understand it and read it properly. And again, I was like, it's just so jumbled, and it's just not consistent. And I was like, whatever. I tried, but then like, it's always in our house on the top of the bookshelf, and it's always like this mysterious book, and you can't touch it all the time, and you have to go do wuzu, and if you've got your period, you definitely stay away, and all of this. But when I was wanting to like actually like cut through all of this like outside stuff, I was like, let me read the Quran, and let me get, I don't care about the lost in translation and the beauty of it. And I got rid of that mentality I had when it was like 9-year-old me trying to read it, or 16-year-old me trying to read it, when I was like holding it and I'm like, I'm about to be blown away, like this is my God talking to me. And I actually went into it and was like, right, what the hell is this saying in English? And then I was like, this is bad. This is
when
really,
it gets
really
translated in English, it's horrible. It's a horrible read.
And even, I mean, now, like just from the time when I read it, like 3-4 years ago, to reading it now, it's already become so much more palatable. I'm like, why are you trying to like? It was worse actually back then. Now they've added a few more fluffy brackets, and they're trying to make it even more in line with being acceptable today. But
I think the Pictal translation is the one that put between brackets and hid them or scourged them lightly between brackets.
Yeah.
Which is really, really funny. Like you couldn't even like take it. So it's all God must have meant that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, humans, for coming in and making God's word slightly better. It's just ridiculous.
It's incredible. So leaving Islam doesn't mean necessarily leaving God, because then did you have an idea in your head saying, well, maybe God still spoke to us, but through some other religion or a different type of message? Did you leave God straight away, or did you go, hold on a second here, maybe God is still around, but I'm going to find him somewhere else?
Yeah, no. So what happened was, so when I was like, wow, the God that I was told, the God of the Quran I'm sorry, he's an absolute moron. He's horrible. If he can't even have the basic decency to say both of my creations are equal, I'm sorry, then like stuff you. This was the God I cared about this whole time. So I then went on a quest to be like, what else have I been lied to about? Obviously, like everything in Islam, I was like, right, all of it is a lie. So I was on this thing for like, I would just literally eat, sleep, learn about Islam and be like, what else? Like, where did they get this from? Where did they steal this from? Where did they plagiarize this story from? Oh, that makes sense. That's why it's all jumbled. That's why I never got any answers. But because you'd been lied to on such on such a deep level, for me, like Judaism, Christianity, and then Islam, like if you lump in the Abrahamic group, like even a lot of Islam, when you believe in it as a Muslim, like inherently you're believing quite a lot of things that are, already implied by Judaism and Christianity, namely like creationism and Adam and Eve and all of that kind of thing, and hell and, and for me, that just disappeared. I was like, no, if Allah's wrong, all three Abrahamic gods, all the other Abrahamic religions are not going to do it for me either. And I'm not just going to fall for anything that sounds comfortable in terms of like, like Far Eastern, like spiritualisms or religions or whatever. I'm just like, I just want to go now. I want to follow the
You've abandoned everything, even star signs.
Yes, even star signs.
But they're true, it says astrology. It must be a science, So it's got ology. It's got to be a science.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So no, nothing that I was like. I mean, it's like that. It's like that expression, right? Like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I am definitely not going to back anything now that I can't visibly either see with my eyes or have science back up as, a part of our reality. But like, don't get me wrong. Like, I enjoy or like being in awe of things and like marveling at the universe and learning like languages and, even having like mind-altering experiences. I just don't superimpose a spiritual aspect onto it. I'm just like, oh, that's what my mind is capable of. But I don't need this like this fuzzy figure who's always like going to help me in my like I am my God. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah, I can understand that. So now probably it's the time while you're chatting away. I want to prepare your channel and share it, Nuriyah. But tell us about, when did you start your channel, Holy Humanist? What is that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, sure. So I started this channel, I think it's just been a year now. But again, just to kind of go back to what we were saying at the beginning of this conversation, we're so privileged, honey. We almost do this as like, let's do this in our spare time. Let's talk about things that interest us. Let's talk about common journeys and experiences we've been on. So I was like, obviously there's so many people out there fighting this good fight to try and normalize dissent and say, hey, we exist, we were former Muslims, we're not anymore, and we have a right to speak. Like, gone are the days of Salman Rushdie or trying to silence us. So if I am in such a privileged position, why would I not use my privilege to like add to that? And especially because of the shock that you can imagine and the disgust of what I found in the Islamic scriptures relating to women. And I just look at the women that are closest to me, around me, the women that I love, and I'm like, you're all part of this ideology, but you have no idea where it actually places you in life and in the world and what it says about you. The fact that you're deficient in intelligence and, your testament is equal to half of a man and you get less inheritance. All of you are essentially the property of a man. You get passed from your father to your husband, and they live their entire lives without questioning it because it is just what we've passed on. So this is really like, I wanted to create a safe space for women who have either left Islam, but also to get real with women about what Islam is without making it, confrontational or judgmental. It's just, let's be intellectually honest. That's why I said driven by intellectual honesty. If it's intellectually honest, we'll roll with it, whatever that is. But it's just, it's meant to be a safe space and just highlighting Islam and the problem with dogma, to be honest.
So, folks, this is Nuriyah's channel, Holy Humanist. There's brilliant contents in there. You speak with some interesting speakers. Sultan, the South African dude, where you talk about the history of Islam. And I've just noticed you are only 120 subscribers away from the 10K subscribers. So
Yes.
guys, come on, go on, subscribe to Nuriyah's channel, please. 10K, not too far away now.
No, thank you, honey. And actually today, after this, I have my first live call-in show for ex-Muslim women to come and share their stories. So I have never done this before, and I don't know if anybody is going to actually show up. I have a few women who have made it's clear that they want to share their stories, but I understand like how hard it is for women to come forward. So I am trying to I want to make this a regular thing. So I'm going to wing it today. Let's see how it goes, because I understand like, it is that extra bit harder for women to leave Islam. The pressure is that much more real. The danger is that much more real. The social economic ramifications are that much more real. So, but again, if women leave Islam, trust me, Islam has nothing left, because that's what it is. It's preying on your subservience so that the men can carry out living their lives, giving these fatwas, marrying 4 women, engaging in child marriage, all of those monstrosities that we're fighting against. Sorry, honey, I had to put that little rant in there.
No, for sure. No, yeah, fantastic. Look, there's a lot of questions now. I mean, I want to cover one last point, because I think we've mentioned before, Nuriyah, that we want to probably have some sort of a collaboration project at some point where we're going to have back and forth sort of discussions about different topics, not just Islam. Maybe we talk philosophy and psychology and some interesting aspects in the human mind. What after religion? Maybe a conversation where you left religion, so what now? Okay.
Yes,
yeah. So there are a few questions that we want to get to. So please hold on to your questions. We're gonna start working on them in the next 5 minutes, and gonna stop sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Of course. It's you've got a fantastic channel, and really the contents are amazing. Now it's been about 4 years since you left religion. What's the evolution like of your personality, of who you are, how you've grown as a person in that last 40 years? Your critical thinking. Are you approaching problems in a slightly different way? Are you approaching social situations in a different way?
Yes. I mean, to be honest, I think the growth that I've had as a person, like intrinsically in the last like 3 to 4 years is probably more than I've had through like my entire years of schooling. It's just because once you leave something that's so heavily once upon a time was part of your identity, but so fundamentally like stagnating in terms of what it does to your mind, and how it just, I genuinely, honey, believe that like a religion in general, but Islam specifically, because of how it encourages the lack of thinking and asking questions, it really stunts your critical thinking abilities from a very young age, and you are taught to kind of believe in and obey things that you have never heard or never seen. You've just been told, and some of them sound insanely farcical, like Muhammad flying up on the Buraq, yet grown up men genuinely believe that. So I now approach
when you put it that way.
Oh my gosh, there's that meme. It's like when you feel stupid, remember that like 1.8 billion Muslims believe a man flew up on a flying donkey or whatever it is.
We're humans. I mean, we believe in reindeers and flying, and Santa and things like that. It's the story. Somebody said once before, the more incredible the story, the more believable it becomes. Because it's so incredible, must have happened.
Yeah, that's true. But it's like, I think Ricky Gervais said once, he was like, listen, it's fine if you're like a 12-year-old, but like if you're like a 30-year-old at a social dinner and you start saying that you believe it's true, it gets a bit embarrassing.
So we share the love for Ricky Gervais. Is brilliant. He's brilliant.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love him. He's so good.
I'm trying to get him on my show. I'm trying.
Oh my God. You know what? I'm hoping that one day at some point he'll be like, okay, she left Islam. Maybe I'll talk to her. I'll be like, hey, Ricky.
I'm trying to get him through Lawrence Krauss, because Lawrence Krauss is a common friend.
Oh my gosh, yes. I actually listened to their podcast for the second time last night.
Oh, really?
I was actually in between that one and your one. I think you won with Robert Price about, it was about transgenders in in the
Yeah,
Bible or something. Yeah. I was
yeah.
switching
Today
between
we
both.
spoke about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really
Um,
good.
I think it would be such a great show. Ricky Gervais is just brilliant.
Oh my gosh. And you know what, honey, you can do it because he went on to he is really like down to earth like that. He is known to like just respond to people on Twitter and be like, yeah, cool, I'll do that podcast. And like go, there was another English comedian who was like very low level compared to Ricky starting out. And he was like, I'm so humbled. Ricky did not care. He just came and he's like my idol. And they literally just had like a very, very normal conversation, like they were mates going back years. Anyway, I am fangirling. I absolutely love Ricky. And his new stuff is coming out soon, by the way. He's performing it in London in the next couple of weeks. If you're ever in London, you should definitely try and catch him live as well.
Is that his stand-up stuff?
Yeah.
He's brilliant in stand-up. He does like, it's more like a narration. He did Animals. I think Animals was brilliant, where he sort of talked about that.
Humanity was brilliant.
Yeah, I love the snake part where God condemns the snake to walk in its belly as a punishment.
On his belly.
It's like, shit, I won't be able to fly anymore like I used to. Okay, I'll take my punishment.
Oh my gosh. And when he opens the Bible on stage and he just starts reading it and then he's just taking the piss, he's like, okay, God, seems a bit all right, it's a bit extra, but sure. Like just
There's another one, and I think he's sort of oldish. You heard of Dave Allen, the Irish guy?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
I love the first point where he says, well, the Bible really gets you. In such a, you can see how intellectual God is when he said, it all began in the beginning. It all began in the beginning. You know? It's like, what a profound statement, you know?
I think Ricky says something to that effect as well. He's like, first there was nothing. And he's like, well, that's convenient. And then there was God made the world, like brought light.
This is brilliant. Well, what say you? We'll take some questions for the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, just to quickly answer that question of yours. So just because this is a really important point on I think the best thing that comes with leaving religion behind is that once you get rid of that, you start thinking so much more clearly, because I mean, the proverbial dog, right? You don't have a dog in the fight anymore. And you just start to see people as people, like regardless of their faith or their belief. And also all the stupid like bullshit that I was indoctrinated with, pardon my French, for example, like thinking that homosexuality is wrong or it's a sin. I don't need to try and justify being like good to those people anymore in my head. And like I can just love people for who they are, which is so much more closer to my nature and even what it was as a Muslim. But the only thing stopping me from doing that was Islam. So now I like literally can connect with people on a genuinely humane level. And I mean, applying that into the wider world in terms of like my career and my education now and the way I deal with life and situations, I just think so much more like rationally and logically. And, you know, it's all to do with like just and like being equitable and fair and, you know, being logically consistent as opposed to being right or like my way is the highway or my God is Hu Akbar kind of thing. All of that just dissipates. And I think that's a really lovely kind of liberated like place to be in.
Completely agree. Now, first question from, not sure how to pronounce your first name, but is it Hyasant or I can't pronounce it. It's an interesting spelling. But Hitchmore. Do you guys favor the French separatist or the Danish assimilation model? Obviously of Islam, because you know how the French would ban you from wearing religious symbols into. By the way, it's not just the Muslim cover, but any religious symbols, because that's always gets overlooked.
It's across the board. Exactly, they ban all of them. It's not just targeting the Muslims outright. That again, that's a very important point to make.
Or do you prefer the more the Scandinavian model? You know, where they a bit more accepting?
Yeah. So, I mean, initially I was obviously like, I mean, I'm always in favor of assimilation theoretically, right? Like that's kind of like the best way we can move as a, pluralistic society that can coexist. So, in theory, assimilation would be ideal. But just as of late, what we've seen in a couple of these Scandinavian countries is that the assimilation model has completely failed. And as with like issues in the UK, you've got pockets of almost like no-go zones, which are, rife with Muslims who are, again, not assimilating in the way that they'd hoped. Whereas I think what's ironic is in the French, the kind of stance that the French have taken, yes, they seem on face value to be a lot more harsher in their approach, which I think is also necessary to a certain extent. But the way that the French almost, I don't want to use this word too harshly, but the way they force assimilation, so they kind of make sure that the neighborhoods and these suburbs are mixed up with various ethnicities, and that's reflected in the schools and everything. So there's not like a monopolization of one ethnic culture or one kind of group of people. I think that is a very good model, because assimilation only works when you are almost forced to interact with people. But that is done in a consistent manner that you're constantly exposed to, so you don't really have that concept of the other kind of starts diminishing over time. And I think that's more effective, because otherwise you end up with, I mean, as Hani was pointing out earlier, the UK is not even the safest. Like, I would not go to certain parts of the UK, Hani, I mean, even though we're in England, I definitely would stay away from, and I get anxiety going to certain places that I do have to go to, where there is a large portion of people. So it's a bit of a mix and match, to be honest. But yeah, I think the French model is proving to be more effective at the moment.
Bit of an elaboration from H.
Mm.
Moore. I meant the whole
Oh.
compulsory daycare and evictions that the Danish have installed.
I don't really know about that, Honey, to be honest.
Yeah, same here.
You?
If you can maybe elaborate, are you talking about the? Yeah, I want, because to me the word assimilation means here that because it takes two to tango. If you're
Mm.
if you're about to, if you live in a country that was not natively yours, okay, you'd be accepted with your culture, with your cuisine, with what you got, but you got to also take some of the new countries, your new adopted home customs and traditions, and sort of melt together, create something new. But the problem is, some of these migrants, they want to have it all their way. They want their culture to be fully accepted,
Their
but
law.
they don't want to even learn the language sometimes of the country they're gone to. They don't want anything to do with. They live in ghettos within that country, and they have little, like your little, Chinatown, a little India, and suddenly you have like second generation of people don't speak the language of the country they're living in, which is really, really sad. Here we go. The Danes have named a few concentration Muslim neighborhoods ghettos. Oh, so obviously there will be some suburbs where only Muslims can live. That's wrong. I mean, that's obviously wrong. But how's that assimilation? That's like the opposite of assimilation.
That's like
So
almost like the UK issue.
unless you mean by the assimilation model here, like you're being sarcastic, because that's obviously not it, and that's wrong. It shouldn't be like that. But sometimes it's self-imposed. If you noticed,
Oh, yes.
like people say, oh, like if you're from Egyptian background or Moroccan, say, oh, there's a Moroccan grocery shop, and there's a Moroccan butcher, and a few Moroccan people, and they suddenly, it feels familiar. Let's live there, and before you
Exactly.
know it, it's self-imposed. All it. Well,
Okay.
but that's fair enough.
That's fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
It's like before you take a citizenship, you're supposed. So imagine turning up to citizenship ceremony and you have
Mhm.
nothing. You want the passport of that stronger nation,
Mm.
be it New Zealand, Australia, whatever,
Mm.
and you have absolutely no clue when it comes to Australian history. That's not
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. I mean, the French actually go and ask you about their like cheeses from various regions and stuff, the stuff you have to know about France.
That's I love that challenge. Would you sort of taste it while you're doing the challenge? So I love cheese.
I know, right? Cheese and wine challenge, sure.
Um, Yeah, so no, I think the compulsory value education, I think that's fair enough.
I think that's fair enough as well.
Yeah,
And that is kind of instilling that at a young age, so that it gives them the best chance of assimilating moving forward, because kindergarten is obviously catching them young, as opposed to making sure that they hold on to those values that are going to be antagonistic to the new country that they're in, from where they came from, and that being consistently propounded at home by their parents. So this is actually a very good kind of diving board, if you will.
yeah. Saying the ghetto label is descriptive, so it's literally
Okay.
called that. I mean,
Yeah.
if they have suburbs where people can only live in from certain ethnic groups, that's wrong. That's obviously not right. You're supposed to be living wherever you want, as opposed, if you're an immigrant doctor, you might be well way off anyway than an actual native person, because you're a doctor and you can afford to live in a nicer place and you drive nicer cars. So why not? No, I don't think this is right to do so. But I can understand why. I think that it's a reactionary movement as well. I mean, they probably realize that immigrants don't assimilate, and therefore they say, well, we got to do something about it, because we have people who don't know the Danish anthem. They don't speak our language sometimes, and they seem to be completely having a slightly different or entirely different value system within our culture, and they want to preserve the culture, and I can understand it. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
this is problematic, but a ghetto where a suburb is named only for Muslims to live in, I think there's something wrong about that. I think I've noticed another question here. So I think this is to do with the divorce laws, and so if the
Oh.
husband is abusive or a drug addict or something, would you still be able to get a divorce under Islamic Sharia?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know according to the actual like old school Sharia, but in Dubai, for example, in the UAE, the way they would implement Sharia in this case would be to, like you have to prove, like the onus is very much on you to prove that like your husband is like a drug addict or an alcoholic, and that's like a serious issue, that to the point where you can't stay with him. But again, it's not grounds for divorce immediately. They will try and get
Yeah,
your husband like all kinds of help
rehab and
before they
stuff.
will
Yeah,
give you like an out via divorce. They're gonna, again, there'll be like thousands of Islamic
but
counseling things. Go like pray, go send him to these class, anything to keep you in for as long as possible.
but this is your chance to get him back. You can say now, oh, he's got gin in him. Uh,
Yes.
and when you say gin and tonic,
A
by the
gin
way,
and
not
tonic kind of gin. Yeah, yeah. Exactly. Um,
um, yeah, but the males will have lots of leeway and lots of outs.
yeah,
The UAE and Arab countries, the male will always have many avenues to get out from, for sure.
exactly.
Uh, there was another interesting question I spotted. What does Noria think of Speaker's Corner and Muhammad Hijab and the rest of the bottom of the barrel that Great Britain gifted the rest of the world?
Oh my gosh. Wow, a very well crafted question, I must say, especially the second half. So yes, I mean, to be honest, there's not really two ways about it. The Dawa gang of the UK are pretty much abysmal, right? They're an embarrassment. I'd say they're an embarrassment to most Muslims out there, and I'm glad that I'm on this side and I don't have to be a Muslim trying to defend Ali Dawah eating grapes like he's some Roman emperor, or Muhammad Hijab jumping out of boxes, or like ripping his shirt off outside of the Chinese consulate. Like these are not my people to defend, thankfully. Um, it's very, very embarrassing behavior. I mean, like, to be honest, it's, like even seeing Ali Dawah speak to AP was just cringeworthy to watch. Seeing Muhammad
Oh,
Hijab speak to Jordan Peterson was cringy to watch, and that's Muhammad Hijab trying to be on his best behavior to impress Jordan Peterson. So can you imagine what they're like on there? Like, I mean, you obviously do know what they're like, option select, because I'm sure you've seen what happens on those Dawah channels. To be honest, I don't watch them. I feel like I lose brain cells when I listen to Ali
yeah.
Dawah speak. So I think he's got a lot of, like, I mean, there's so much ego and aggression and insecurity that comes out when he speaks that I can't even like listen to him put forward an argument, nor have I heard him put forward an argument that is actually possible to have an A to B conversation with. So I just think people who can't even like, have discourse, they're just not worth listening to. So yeah, Speaker's Corner, I think it's really tragic what the place has become, because again, when I was like a young girl growing up here, my dad would take us there and he would say, like, this is like some old tradition, and this is the hallmark of democracy and freedom of speech. And we used to just hear all these, men shouting. And recently, since I've come back and since I've come into this movement, every time I see a video uploaded of Speaker's Corner on YouTube, there's something's popping off or something's kicking off. And we know what happened with Hatun as well. And again, as I'm saying, I don't have a death wish, so I would never show up at Speaker's Corner anymore, which again is sad, because you think that the one place that has, if not universities and college campuses, the other place that has guaranteed your freedom of expression and your safety should be Speaker's Corner.
So the last time I was there would have been about 15 years ago, and it was quite decent then. How's it now? Is it like really gone berserk?
Yeah, I mean, so it just, I mean, if you've seen the videos, the debate, it's still got that, that spirit of debating and things, but some of the interactions and the altercations just turn too, they can turn violent very quickly and very rowdy very quickly. And the Muslim scene, like, especially when Ali Dawah or somebody does show up there, that can get quite confrontational. And as what happened with Hatun, I mean, she was stabbed from the behind, like somebody came behind her while she was so if you can't even guarantee that what you're saying, like, you're going to be able to finish your sentence without somebody stabbing you and running off, it's not really a place that, that you'd want to be at. I mean, Islam comes with its own fair share of problems. So maybe if I was a former something else, I would still go there. But because of what Islam brings with it, I sadly have to write off Speaker's Corner for me as a person.
You're about to turn green of anger, because I'm going to turn green, and you won't like me when I turn green.
Oh no!
Because, look at this here. So we've heard about women and lollies, women and meat, but now you're an ice cream. What say you?
Oh my gosh! No. When are we ever going to be humans in the minds of people like Hassan Ahmed? When are we going?
What flavor would you be if you're an ice cream?
Honey, I wouldn't even entertain this. I refuse.
I mean, this is beyond insane. I mean, I don't know why they don't understand that bit.
I literally don't. But also, if we were to roles reversed, Hassan, well, I love men. I love marrying more than one. But Islam doesn't allow me that. Why do you get special privileges?
Yeah. What sort of foods would you make? Well, it's your turn now. Have a go at men. What do you think of men as well?
Yeah. Oh, honey, don't do this
is insanity, guys. This is crazy. This is insanity.
It's true. I genuinely love men. The men in my life are amazing, but I would never they're talking in the ways of body count. And when you start talking in terms of body count, you may as well say they're pieces of meat, or that, as you're saying, they're varying flavors of ice cream. These are women with real minds and emotions and feelings and establishing their own relationships and bonds. And you think you can get access to 4 of them because you like varying flavors?
You've seen the very popular meme of the popsicle right next to a covered one, and next to a covered lady, Muslim lady, and an uncovered popsicle with flies on,
covered in flies,
and a loose Western woman next to it. It's like, what would you rather?
Yeah,
I mean, this is incredible.
Also, Muslim men are the flies in that scenario. So what does that make? Great,
Just hit
we'll
a
just
couple
swat
of
you away.
get your
Pest control
aerosols.
problems, honey.
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, I'm not sure if they really understand that this is not the right way to look at human beings.
Yeah, and also, you know what? Like, if you
Oh,
go
here we
into that
go.
situation, that's okay. I was just
Y-
teasing
y-
you guys. Oh my gosh. Oh, you know
Bloody
what?
hell.
You've just
You got us,
restored
Hassan.
my. Thank you for clarifying that. Oh my gosh, you just wound us up for no reason, Hassan. Thank you.
I'm all for multiple marriages, but yeah, it's got to be equal both
Got to
ways.
be
Yeah.
equal, and then yeah, to each their own. If you like, if that works for you, sure. But it should be. It goes both ways.
Yeah, there's actually, that polyamorous people. There are people who are out there, but the thing is, you sort of declare it. You say, "This is who I am. I'm open to. I don't want to have a committed relationship," and people need to understand that this is what they're entering, and if there is consent, and everybody's adult, then it's all fine.
And those women actually, yeah. Again, this is like, as you said, they're living in this way. And there was a documentary called Sister Wives. I think there was like 6 or 7
Yeah,
wives. Yeah, and they essentially lived together as sister wives, but it worked for them, and they had the arrangement with, I guess, their husband that they wouldn't have any more husbands themselves. But
yeah. But if the two of them run away, would he call them in the house of obedience? That's the question.
exactly.
That's the 1 million dirham question.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. The House of Obedience though is literally like kidnap. I was like, I was gonna like saying, so you're gonna kidnap me and like you're taking me from my parents' home. And effectively, honey, even in Islam, right? Once you even if you're going from husband to father, once you've gone back from your husband to your father, like that mahram thing should still kick in as your guardian. And this is so
Oh
low.
yeah,
Like, how
you have
low
to
is
have
the
a
bar in
male
Islam?
chaperone
I
all
would
the
either
time.
belong to one or the other, but
Yeah, a female should never be entrusted with her own. You're two. The men are flies.
it's
I
enough
mean,
spreading.
this is. I mean, I've never seen such a double whammy, double insult to the two members of the human species. Males and females. And one go, and what's in between. I don't want to get wrong with the LGBTQ community because the spectrum is widening at this point. So a slap on both faces at the same time of a male and female. Women, that you are nothing worth other than your body and your physicality, and that's it. There is nothing in there. And men, because we can't control we're
Sexual
basically
self.
flies and cats and dogs and all sort of animals
Yeah.
and insects.
Yeah, that's actually, honey, that's a very, very good point because I need to do this more. Like, we need to turn the onus on Muslim men and say, do you accept that? Do you accept that you are so kind of weak that, you're going to walk around and like Muhammad walked around the bazaar and then he got so full of desire, he had to rush back to his wife and have her there and then. And that's what he says you're supposed to do. So, I mean, how weak is your ability to control your own sexual impulses? What does that say about Muslim men? It reflects really badly. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Whew, Hassan, thank you.
Yeah, he was having us on. I'm glad. But the thing is, even though you're being sarcastic, Hassan, there are actually people who would actually hold these views
And they
will
do,
find
yeah.
it quite reasonable. I think there was the Mufti of Australia said that once, and he said he likened an uncovered woman with a piece of meat, and he said, "Would you blame cats if they try to steal a piece of meat that is uncovered?"
What
And
the
he was actually
hell?
saying, justifying sexual harassment, basically.
Yeah. Oh
And
my
say, well,
God.
the fault is with the woman because cats cannot be entrusted when there are uncovered meat. It's just, it's such an ignorant and embarrassing. He was Egyptian as well.
Honey, I don't know what kind of like what low of lows you get privy to, like maybe in especially on your Arabic channel, but like when I have been part of these shows in Urdu, there are actually, as you're saying, there are actually callers that call in and we show the hadith about women being deficient in intelligence and all that, and they actually say, yes, so what? And I'm like, so you believe that? You believe your mother has half the intelligence that you do. And he goes, well, yeah, like it's true, women can't fly planes and stuff. And I'm like,
it reminded me of that Sacha Baron Cohen in Borat, and he was sitting with a feminist, a group of feminists, and he said, "Isn't it true that the women have smaller brain than the men?" And the woman started, "What the hell?" He said, "Well, our government scientist from Kazakhstan confirmed that the woman is the size of the brain of a woman is the size of a squirrel." Obviously, he's trying to get them to get sort of angry and enraged because that's what he does for a living. But
you know what's sad is this is actually reflected in reality, and it's really sad because like Imran Khan, for example, who was the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he was actually, like, when there were massive rape cases which shook the nation, gang rape cases as well, he would say our women are so good, like they're so respectful that even when that happens to them, they don't want to come forward out of shame. Like, what kind of narrative are you peddling? Do you know what I mean? So you're saying, yeah, you as a woman, if you've been violated, being like quiet about that is good because it means you have shame and honor.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
It's madness.
We can go on forever, but I think there will be multiple conversations, guys, between me and Nuriyah, where we're going to cover, maybe rather than just because today's was an introduction to Nuriyah in my channel. She's done the same for me on her channel a couple of weeks ago. But next, we will be probably taking on a topic where we can actually focus our energy and intellect on.
Amazing.
Nuriyah, I've really enjoyed every moment. It was fun. I like fun conversations. Even though it was intellectual, but it was also, mixed with a lot of jokes and a lot of sense of humor, which I really like. What have you got for the rest of the week? Have you got anything you want to tell people about that you're going to be doing this weekend so they can follow you and watch you?
Yes, so as I said, after this, in about an hour, I will be doing my first live ex-Muslim women call-in. So do come to that if you want to hear some ex-Muslim women's stories. I'm hoping to get some varied stories. And of course, if you are an ex-Muslim woman, or you've been affected or exposed to Islam, by all means, feel free to join. And then tomorrow is Sunday Scoop, as usual. So that will be on the regular show. And then let's see, I am starting a new job in a week or so, anything that I'm going to try and do before that. So just keep an eye on the community tab page. But other than that, I just want to say, Hani, thank you so much. As you said, this has been so enjoyable. I love the fact that it's a stimulating conversation with loads of banter thrown in. It just keeps it lighthearted. But as you said, we could go on forever. And I know you have an Arabic stream to get to as well, right? So
45 minutes, yes. Yeah.
But no, thank you so much for giving me the time and having me on here. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dalai Lama, for the super chat. Appreciate your support, and hopefully you can go and watch, especially if you're a female Muslim or ex-Muslim and you want to sort of have a better understanding of the condition of women within the Islamic ruled countries, or even if you live in a Western country and you still live within the Islamic narrative and you want to understand what's going on, please check it out. Would you like to finish with anything, Nuriyah?
No, actually, I think I've covered everything. Just a massive thank you to you. And again, as you said, let's do something soon. We'll tackle some other kind of like fun topics post-religion now. But thank you to you and your audience for being so nice and asking such good questions, and for all the comments. I wasn't really keeping an eye because the conversation is so stimulating here. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Nuriyah. Guys, in 45 minutes, I'm going to be with Ahmed Sami, and we're going to talk about free will, whether it's an illusion or not. It'll be quite an interesting conversation. Thank you, Nuriyah. And you guys have yourself a great weekend.
Bye. Thanks, honey. Bye, everyone. you.